Pai nosso, que estás no céu, santificado seja o vosso nome. Venha a nós o vosso reino, seja feita a vossa vontade, assim na terra como no céu, assim na terra como no céu. O pão nosso de cada dia dai-nos hoje, ó Senhor. Perdoai as nossas dívidas, assim como perdoamos aos nossos devedores. Não deixeis cair em tentação, mas livrai-nos de todo o mal. Não deixeis cair em tentação, mas livrai-nos de todo o mal.
Be a good Samaritan for the people outside. We need to be a good Samaritan for individuals that knocks on our door from the outer world. However, our neighbor is right next to us. I never forget that when we were
for having our friends who come and bring their teachings, everything they learn and bring to us in order to help us open our hearts for these wonderful lessons from the gospel and from Spiritism. So we ask them for the inspiration, to our friend Leonardo and to all the people that are listening to us. Thank you. So be it. Hi, Leonardo.
Hello, how are you? How's everyone?
Nice seeing you here. Thanks for accepting our invitation. And before we let you bring the lessons of the morning, I'm going to introduce you formally for those who don't know you yet, right? So Leonardo Vieira and his family live in Westminster, Maryland, and he's one of the workers of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. He has conducted and helped with several works at the SSB, including study groups, mediumship meetings, and public talks. He has a bachelor's degree in business administration, and he's currently working on his master's degree in management with a specialization in homeland security. Professionally, he works for a major financial institution as a banker. So welcome again, and I'll let you bring the lessons of our neighbors. Let's listen.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everyone, for this amazing opportunity to be here with you, speaking this amazing Saturday morning. And we would like to speak of this amazing topic, our neighbor. When we were invited to speak with the public, it's always that, let's say, the challenge of speaking to the crowds, to the other people. We know that through the web now, not only we're speaking with individuals in the now, right at this moment, but this gets to be published, this gets to be shared and multiplied in many ways. So the challenge is to speak with the public about something that is going to be constructive first, obviously, under the guidance of Spiritism here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. From time to time, please let me know if something happens. But when we came up, this topic came out basically based on a a study that we have been doing in our homes, in our gospel at home. And we're studying the book Sex and Destiny. That is an amazing book that usually we joke that when Hollywood gets to discover this amazing book by André Luiz through the hands of the medium Chico Xavier, it will guide many lives. Hollywood will not be any richer. We're not going to talk about that, but it's just going to be an amazing transformation for all of us, because it involves our day-to-day lives, as well as the connection that we have with the spiritual world, right? The connection that we have with the issues of the past, the connections that we will have with also our future. Basically, what we do now, how we construct our present, will help us in the future as well. So the first example that I would like to bring to you is of this book that we can find it on chapter 9 of this amazing book. And it's a conversation between Claudia and Marcia. These are two individuals that is on the whole plot, the whole situation that happens in the lives of several families, several individuals. They were married. They're a married couple, and they have 2 daughters, one biological daughter, one adopted daughter. And it is in this chapter that André Luiz describes their situation, the 2 of them. When we were studying this book in our guide at home, for those of you who does not know what a guide at home is, we can give you more details. You can go to the SSB, you can go to the United States Federation website, and we'll have a lot of information on it, more detailed information. Basically, it's a moment that us Spiritists would like to dedicate between us, all the family members of the house. And if you don't find individuals who would like to do with you, you can do by yourself. That you stop for 1 hour, you will read a passage you pray, read a passage of a book, kind of like visualize what the message is trying to bring to better ourselves, and then you close with a prayer. But that has to be at a specific day of the week, at a specific moment, so that you continue to have that moment of changing your fluidic environment of your home, and this will bring different results to your life and to the environment of your home as well. In a nutshell, that's what a guided home is. So, us here at my house, we were studying this book, and we always tend to go for the major elements of the book, right? The transformation between lives and all those things. And we tend to forget what André Luiz, in this case, the author, is trying to bring with the actual situation that is happening. And it struck me at first, because that was my idea, right? Well, what about, their lives, their connection with the past, and so on and so forth. And we forget the moment, which is critical for us to understand, our situation, and it's critical as well for the future. So here's what's happening. They are in a total, let's say, it's a war zone between these 2 individuals. And again, they are married, they're together, and they have a daughter. Their daughters are of a early, let's say, adulthood, in their, early 20s or so. So you can see that they have a history together in this life, but they are just, again, in a total war zone. I will bring some of the elements that André Luiz brings to us, and so we can understand what I'm trying to say. André Luiz says the following: 2 sworn enemies enjoying a friendly truce. So they're enemies. They're married, but they're enemies. And one may think, okay, how do you get to this point? Why do you let yourself get to this critical level where you live in the same household, you are in the same location, you're a father, you're a mother, and you always live in this battlefield? We see, he also said that they could sense, in this case, Pedro Neves, who was actually André Luiz's friend, who is also part of the whole, let's say, life in the beyond and connected with these families, said that we could sense mutual mistrust in both of them. 2 mouths that understood each other, 2 heads that did not see eye to eye. Each sentence came out prefabricated in the throat, disguising the thought. They immediately noticed also the regimen of attack and counterattack in which those two enemy souls lived, socially enchained to each other due to the demands of their trials. So they're living this as husband and wife, but they actually have in within themselves the necessity to go through this trial as well. And all this will make sense when we put all this together. And as she was complaining, and they're going over their household issues that that is happening right now, and all the difficult moments that are going through, she got the feeling, and this is Andrea Luis saying, it's not Leo, that he was actually saying mentally, "Oh, why don't you just die?" And also, Andrea Luis mentions that he, in many times, verbalized this: "Why don't you just die?" And this is someone saying to his wife. So as hard it is to believe, and I know it's painful at this time of in the morning for us to talk about this, or any time whatsoever, but this is what's happening behind the scenes in this specific chapter, as well as it happens every day in our lives. There were two spirits facing each other with disguised loathing, two sworn enemies, aversion against aversion. And to finalize, he saw his wife as a woman that had no commitments at home, right? She actually was only with him because of the status, and she was a product of himself, meaning the way he also saw life, with uncontrolled emotions. She was really only putting up with the whole thing for a social, let's say, status that she wanted to keep up. So she was in fact a product on how he saw life and what he constructed. So he had no way to complain. She was again the byproduct of a life that he constructed. Instead of allowing himself to become a better individual, he constructed this whole thing. So this is the battlefield that we would like to talk about today. Not that we're going to take sides, not that we're going to for any intended purpose, say that this person was wrong or right, or to judge anything, but allow ourselves to truly understand who is our neighbor. Allow ourselves to truly say, if we're together, there is a reason for it. We're going to put this aside right now, this case aside, and we're going to go back forth to it. But I would like to take a step forward, and we're going to discuss now a passage that we can find in Luke, chapter 10, verse 25 to 37. In this passage also, we can find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is the parable of the Good Samaritan. And I brought some pictures here for us to kind of understand and bring and take us to the moment as well. And many of us may say, "Oh my gosh, here again goes another parable." This is not a Bible study. This is not for us to dive into the parable, but the parable is used in many ways for us to depict what we're trying to say. So here it goes. Then a doctor of the law stood up and said to him in order to test him, "Master, what must I do to possess eternal life?" Pay attention to the questions, because the questions that the doctor of law asked is pertinent to all of us, and we also ask these questions, not exactly with the same words, not exactly verbalizing it, but us, especially us Spiritists, we forget that what we do in the now is what will grant us, in this case, eternal life. Jesus answered him, what is it that is written in the law? Once more, another question that we need to pay attention. What do we read? Are we reading between the lines, right? Are we really paying attention to the actual teachings that is in a book as we just brought? What have you read in it? He responded to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Jesus said to him, "You have answered well. Do so, and you shall live." And it's pretty straightforward, right, for all of us. But then again, it doesn't stop there. And the doctor of the law trying to, test Jesus. He says, however, wanting to appear to be righteous, the man said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And Jesus answered to him, telling a story, telling the parable, the actual parable. A certain man was coming down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of thieves, who stripped him of his clothes, covered him with wounds, and left him half dead. Afterward, it just so happened that a priest was coming down by the same way, and having noticed him, passed him by on the other side. A Levite, who also came to the same spot, saw him but passed by on the other side. But when a Samaritan, who was on a journey, came to where the man was and saw him, he was touched with great compassion. He approached him and poured oil and wine on his wounds and bandaged them. And putting him on his own animal, took him to an inn and cared for him. The following day he took 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take good care of this man, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I return." Jesus then continued and said, "Which of these 3 seemed to you to have been the neighbor of the one who fell into the hands of the thieves?" The doctor of the law responded to him, "The one who showed compassion on him." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Pretty lengthy, and this parable requires us to study, to go deeper. There is an amazing work that we can share with you that I find very useful for us to understand the behind the scenes, what a Levite means really, what the doctors of the law and the passage from Jerusalem to Jericho. The book is called in Portuguese Parábolas Terapêuticas, or therapeutic parables, from the author Alírio de Cerqueira Filho. If you want to analyze, I believe it's chapter 1, and it gives a lot of information that we can understand the context, the full context of what this whole thing meant, and why Jesus may have used such an example to elucidate what is this idea of possessing or be able to gather or to obtain eternal life. So it's important. If you want to go deeper into it, you can obviously do so. And there are other authors as well that really dives into this parable, explaining to us this whole thing. Obviously, the Gospel according to Spiritism, at the beginning of the book, goes over these different tribes, the different people of the time. So you have a better understanding of what a Levite is, what a Samaritan is, all these groups of people. So at this point, we would just like to go on and move on to one specific area that is very important to us. We see that is a man that was stripped of his condition, was robbed, as you can see in the picture, and he was suffering. There were 2 individuals who knew the law, right, who had understanding of the law, and a Samaritan who was not necessarily considered a good person of the time, comes and helps the individual and allows him to live again, or proposes life to all of us, right, with this example. And Jesus made this very apparent for us, or very well described to us, that that goodness can be attained or can be done by any of us. It doesn't matter our status, our condition, so it's for all of us. Here's the picture again, so you can kind of have a bigger idea. And again, it is on the chapter, "Without charity there is no salvation," the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 15. But we're going to focus right now on this part right here. And who is my neighbor? This is as we know, the title of our talk, our conversation today. And this is what would like to really focus on for all of us, to take this idea of charity and not make only for what is out there when we go to our temples, when we go to the Spiritist Center, but who is right next to us, right? And in this amazing book, Courage, on chapter 23, entitled In the Domestic Atmosphere, Emmanuel comes and takes this passage, this exactly passage, and reminds us that it's not the individual on the street. It's not the individual that comes to asking for help, knocking on our door at the Spirit Center, or at the location where we go and worship and whatever we do. But it's that individual who has reincarnated with us. It's that individual that later on will become a partner. And even though the example that we used, it was a husband and wife, I would like to ask you to extend this invitation that Emmanuel makes, to apply it to everyone, your coworker. Most of the time, we spend a lot of time with individuals at work, right? We spend more time at work than we spend home. We may spend more time at home if we really calculate the number of hours, but it's important that we also think that, we sleep at home, so we're not really interacting directly with certain individuals. So, the 8 hours, sometimes more than 8 hours at work, guess what? We're dealing with those individuals. So this partnership can be extended to any individual that we deal with. It may be temporarily, it may be for a long time, it may be for a lifetime. Who knows? So it's important that we really apply this to everyone. Although we will continue, again, to go back and refer back to the Sex and Destiny example, and we're going to bring another one later on, a more positive one, but it's important that we apply. So here's the actual passage from the book Courage. Emmanuel says the following: the passage of the Good Samaritan, repeatedly studied, always gives us new teachings. And it does. If you read this again months from now, you will gather more information. It amazes me every time. He said, the compassionate traveler finds an injured man on the road. He then does not hesitate in helping him. He stretches out his hands to him. He takes care of his wounds. He helps him without any prejudice. He takes him to the nearest inn so that the injured man may have a rest. He forgets comfort and remains with him while it is necessary. He does not ask any questions. Let us try to, as we are going through this, let's try to apply this to the struggles that we're having with individuals or cases that we have seen, and we'll go back to the example. Before going back to his duties, he leaves no obligations to the injured man, but provides enough money to pay for his assistance and recovery. Through the message, Jesus taught us the exercise of real charity. However, up until now, nearly 2,000 years have gone by, and we have applied it, usually to those who do not make part of our social group. In fact, very often, those who need help are in our domestic atmosphere. They do not come from Jerusalem to Jericho, but they have been losing their faith and joy, enduring suffering, and their best hopes plundered. How many times, this is the author asking, have we seen the victims of obsession, errors, sadness, and trials in our own homes, our own houses? So this is the question for all of us. When we go back and we analyze that, do we do all of these things for our partners? Do we go over all the necessities that we have, and in conjunction with the necessity of others as well? Quite often we don't. We think about ourselves, we think about our needs before we even think about anybody's needs, if we get to think about anyone's needs. And this is very hard because, as I just mentioned, we are also evolutionary beings that we construct this idea based on our understanding of the law of preservation, that I have to preserve my needs, I have to preserve my personality, right? And we lose the personalities that are around us, the people who are around us, next to us. And this is the calling that we would like to bring on, in terms also, as Emmanuel is saying here, that if we get to do something, we ask for something back. There are conditions, right? There are conditions that when we leave as partners in any gathering or any let's say social circle, we tend to develop our boundaries that, okay, if you do this towards me, this is going to happen. Or if I have to do this for you, you're going to have to do this for me. And there is a price for everything. We put a tag or a price tag to everything that we do for one another. So all of these things we have to take in consideration. Again, to a certain degree, it's not bad. It's just part of evolution. It's part of our ignorance that we have come to thus far, and we're still not in the right path, but we'll get there. And this is the reason why we come together and we talk about these things. Quite often, it's very easy for me to go ahead and do something for someone on the street. Sorry, I believe we lost a little bit. We were having a little trouble with my mic, but sometimes we forget that it's easier for us to do something for someone outside because we're not living with their struggles 24/7. And we tend to complain as well that when we are helping those individuals, that we are having a difficult time with them. So the other point that I would like to make would be in construct with the teachings that we learn with Spiritism itself, directly from the Spiritist book. In this case, I would like to bring a couple passages of the Spirit's book and one passage from the Gospel according to Spiritism. In question 204, excuse me, from chapter 8, entitled Many Lives, the second part of the book, we see this amazing question. Since we have had many existences, does kinship go back to previous ones? And it's yes. The answer is it could not be otherwise. The succession of a corporeal life established ties among spirits dating back to former lives. Such frequently gives rise to the affinity between you and some spirits who might think are strangers, whom we might think are a stranger for us. This explains quite a bit, right? It doesn't justify the craziness sometimes that we're living with others, or in this case of Claudia and Marcia, but it does explain quite a bit because they have an affinity somehow from the past. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to be incarnating together. They wouldn't be together, right? Both of them, in their case, they love the lavish life where they enjoy money, they enjoy the gatherings, the social gatherings of their time, and the social status as well. So they thrived on this together. However, their connection was not solid enough as true husband and wife, right? And they suffer because of this. And with time, it became this war zone. And I would like to make a pause or a parenthesis on this as well, that the war zone doesn't happen overnight. It starts with small things, the bickering, saying things that is smart to your partner or to the person who you live with, and it goes on from there. It builds from there until it gets to a point, like we saw here, that they can barely live together. There are two individuals just living the same household with no connection whatsoever in terms of affection, but they have the demands of the house, that they have the demands of their day-to-day lives. So it's important for us to remember, it starts little by little. It's the injection of thoughts in the relationships and feelings as well that will then become something much greater. And this can go both ways. This can go in the negative way, but if we also deposit the good things, guess what? The goodness will grow. Goodness will multiply, right? So they had a connection. All of us, we have some type of connection. As the affinity goes, it's not for the perfect, on the good side, but it's also in the negative way, because sometimes we have done in the past something to other individuals that now we have to live with them to fix it. So if the affinity is on the negative side, right, of the scale, guess what? More work needs to be done. More trouble will be on our way in connection with that individual, because it's natural that we're going to be come in contact with that individual, there will be that first repulsion. And then we have to analyze, why is this happening? What brings us to this condition, right? Social life is natural to human beings, and God created us to live in society. This point I bring here, and this can be found on the social law. Very short, but we forget this is a very important part of the Spirit's book, the third part of the Spirit's book, that deals with the natural laws. And we see that we are gregarious beings, right? We are individuals who need one another, and we evolve. On question 768, the Spirit tells us that we evolve through interaction. There's no way that I can segregate myself or segregate others, right? Because sometimes we don't pull ourselves from the situation. We tend to throw some other individuals from our day-to-day lives, and we tend to separate. And we forget that we need one another to evolve. Whether the interactions will be a sour one that we need to make it sweeter, or when an interaction as well has some misconnection, mislinks that we need to connect. So it's never going to be easy, because the evolving lifetimes that I have, or reincarnations that I have had, brought me to, or helped me construct who I am. And we have to apply the same thing towards others. So when we see a trait, whether good or bad, when we see a condition that kind of upsets us on someone else, we have to take this in consideration. The many lifetimes, right, that we have lived together, or perhaps apart. I also like to add to this analysis here the time that this spirit have incarnated, if we have not lived with them for our whole life, such as a brother or a sister, or perhaps a father or mother, someone that we will meet in later on in life, or any time of our lives, that they also had the time in this lifetime where they have the input of the environment of other people as well. So we also have to take this in consideration. So this long strides that we have to take in our different reincarnations also counts in this whole thing. But bottom line, we need one another. We need to be together. We would like to make a disclaimer as well that perhaps if the situation between two individuals is unbearable, it's okay to put a pause to it. Spiritism always will bring to us that we ought to do the best that we can to make amends with a brother or sister, or someone whom we have, again, mislinks, to say the least, so we don't go over. Unfortunately, it's not a book that is in English yet, but the book SOS of Family by Joana de Angelis and other authors as well brings to us amazing ideas on how to treat the difficulties that we have in our household, in our day-to-day lives. Another book that is very interesting as well is by Joana de Angelis, is Existential Conflicts, that we can always study as well. And that is all this book is in English, and we can find online to purchase through Leo Publisher or other Spiritist Center. And we can always put this later on the video as well. But these are amazing books that can help us and change our family psychosphere, if we can say that way. And then moving on, this again from the Divine or Natural Law, chapter 26, part 3. Jesus reminds us, the Spirits reminds us that Jesus is the highest standard of moral perfection to which humankind may aspire on earth. God offers him as the most perfect model, and the doctrine he taught is the purest expression of God's law, because he was animated by this divine spirit and was the purest being that has ever walked the earth. Interesting enough, why do we bring this here? It's not that we are just trying to follow the commands of our Master Jesus, or whom Spiritism brings to us as this guide and model, but to truly bring it into our lives. In the book, Sex and Destiny, the mentor of this family, or let's say a couple other families as well, if you please I ask you to please read the book, and you will see that it's an amazing book that you will connect. If you have read it, read it again, because it's always helpful to all of us. But the mentor, in several times, mentions that he has tried the best he could to bring spirituality into these families. In specific to Claudia and Marcia, since we're talking about them, but they just did not want to hear it. There were several moments in which the mentor comes and says, look into this side of life. Try to follow this path. Try to do this. It's not that it was this was done in a demanding way, but in an invitational way that they did not want to hear it. They were more preoccupied with the materialistic side of their reincarnatory plan, or reincarnation, if we can say this way. So it's happening. It's in our lives. It's right in front of us, through people, through individuals coming to us and say, why don't you try this, Leo? Why don't you try it this way? This morning, before we start the meeting, I read a passage of the book Happy Life, and Joana de Anjos reminds us to listen to the advices that we receive, right? Especially when we're asking for something. Listen to the advice. And she reminds us that Paul tells us that we should take the good out of it, follow it, and just leave the bad behind. But we have to be open. We have to ask. We have to go after. And sure enough, our mentors are here to help us. So if we are in a difficult moment, if we're in a difficult situation, if we're living in a war zone like this, because this does not apply just to this couple here on the book, but applies to all of our interactions. That is, like I said, it is happening right now. And that is one of the reasons why we chose this topic, because for sure it's happening to many individuals, to many couples, to many situations of our day-to-day lives. If we extrapolate this a little bit to the political arena that we're going through right now, to the difficulties that we're going right now with the pandemic and all that, we can only imagine the amount of suffering that is out there right now, because we don't look to who is our neighbor. Moving on, the final question that I would like to bring from the Spirit's book. What is the question 886? What is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood? Since we bring Jesus here as the guide and model for all of us, based on what he taught us, the examples that he brought to us as well, it's important for us to, how do we aim it? How do we go about to change the scenario, change the condition that we have with one another? And here it is: benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses. But Leo, this is extremely hard when you're living the situation. I know, I've been through it. You may have been through it, and you may for sure, you probably have been successful in one way or the other. When you were going through the situation, perhaps you applied time, right? You gave yourself time, you gave the other person time, or the situation. Let's not even think directly about the person or the individual that we had an issue, but you apply benevolence towards that individual, right? We have to think in different terms that put yourself in the person's shoes. What am I trying to say? First of all, it's not that we are saying that the wrongdoings of life, as much as we apply this to ourselves as well, is correct. It's okay. It's part of our evolutionary path to make mistakes, to do wrong, or to choose wrong paths, right? So if we look at the other individual saying, okay, well, this person does not know any better, or sometimes the person knows, but it's still, it may be only an understanding that the person hasn't, but the person has not applied this into their lives heart to heart. Or I can say this, it's right here in the mind, but it's not in the heart. This is how the mentors of the book, the mentors that André Luiz brings to us, explain the situation that Marcia is going through, that Claudia is going through, and the other individuals who are also making mistakes in their lives. And making mistake by what standards? Our standards. For them, If you think about that as that individual, it's a normal thing. It's an okay thing for them, because even though they may have some kind of parameters inside of them that say this is not correct, but this is how they are vibrating. Brother Felix, who is the mentor or the overall mentor of the families of the book, he always he reminds André Luiz and Pedro Neves as well, who is the other individual working with André Luiz, that in order for us to understand, we have to come down to their level of understanding of life. And then we have to apply what we would do if we were in the person's shoes, with their level of understanding. Because it's easy for us to analyze the situation when we are in our level of evolution, with all the teachings that we have received through Spiritism or any other religion, or the struggle that we have faced that now we apply to ourselves and say, okay, now I'm not going to do that, because that is just wrong. Not only wrong for me, but wrong for others as well. Or whatever we follow. When we apply ourselves based on the understanding towards life that these individuals have, guess what? We tend to be more benevolent. We tend to be indulgent, because we look at it and say, all right, let's give time. Let's give this individual a little bit of resources, so that they can understand that life is not about just that. It's about caring for ourselves and caring for others. And the more we do, as Joanna De Angeli mentions to us, the more we'll multiply this feeling of love, of caring for one another. If I do towards others, I will receive it back without demanding, because it's just a consequence of the act in itself. And then forgiveness comes, I don't want to say automatically, but it's going to also be part of the whole process, because you're going to look at it and say, okay, I forgive. And then the idea of restoring life, restoring the energy, your energy, because sometimes when we receive offense for others, our energy levels go down, and we tend to feel weak. Our energy levels drops, and we tend it tends to create several other issues that sometimes it's even harder for us to, that we even forget the problem that we were in, and we create other consequences to the whole thing. So it's important for us to pay attention to these, the true meaning of charity, as Jesus explains to us. And it's an amazing ammo for if we can go ahead and use this in our lives. That, always remember benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness for offenses as well. Lastly, what I would like to bring to you is in this slide is this part of the Gospel according to Spiritism 2 that can be found in chapter 12, item 3. No matter how much we argue, how much we go against this idea of changing ourselves towards someone who is not well, just like us, we have this reminder that it's prudent for us to utilize it in every situation. If love towards one's neighbor is the principle of charity, loving everyone as we love ourselves, loving one's enemies is its sublime application. For such a virtue is one of the greatest victories attainable over selfishness and pride. So one thing is to do it, right? And the sublimation of it is when we apply to those around us, then again, that we have missed the link, that we have missed the march. So it's little by little, we will get there. It's not that we're going to overnight change our ways, change our behaviors, and be loving, kind individuals. And this loving, kind individuals doesn't mean that when we have situations with one another, that tomorrow we're going to go ahead and allow or situations to arise where the behavior continues. No, we're going to take our precautions. We're going to make sure that we protect ourselves and we protect others who may be involved as well. But not necessarily we're going to destroy or bring more destructions to the whole situation. Remember, the word that I'd like to use is rehabilitation. Rehabilitation of the self, of who we are, because we often, obviously, when we receive an offense, we tend to suffer, as well as the rehabilitation of that other individual. And it starts, obviously, with the forgiveness, to say, look, you missed the mark. Let's try to do this again, so that our lives does not escalate to what we saw with Marcia and Claudio as well, and live a better life. Mind you, that in this chapter, the situation that is happening, going back to Sex and Destiny, is not so well. The atmosphere of the house is very dense. It's very difficult. What I will disclose to you right now is kind of harsh and it's kind of heavy, but the night prior, Claudio was trying to engage in physical connections with his with his adopted daughter. He had a huge feeling as a man and woman towards his adopted daughter, and this was something that he could not hide towards others. It was very apparent. And the wife, when he was trying to connect with her physically, the wife comes into the house and hears a noise in the bedroom and saves the situation, if we can say this way. So the atmosphere was very dense. The conversation that they were having in this chapter, it was the aftermath, as far as the environment, was the aftermath of what had happened the night prior, and it was very heavy. The young lady called Marita was suffering very dearly because she could not understand why the man who accepted her as an adopted daughter had this feeling towards her, and the need to connect with her as a man, not as a father. And she started questioning all these things. So we can only imagine what was going on in his mind. We can only imagine what was going on in Marita's, the adopted daughter, as well as Claudia, who was a person who, unfortunately, as we saw, was a product of the way he lived, and she constructed this as well, trying to maintain a social status. And they were in this predicament of life now. And we can only imagine what this war zone that they lived will bring to them in the future. One may say, for sure, they will be giving the opportunity to make amends. They will. God's grace is always knocking on our door. However, it will not be in a easy or more or in the same conditions that they were receiving at the time. Things will make it a little bit harder because, again, from that point on, things would just escalate. And because they did not listen to the conditions that was being applied or given by the mentors to become a more evolved beings in terms of spirituality, religion, or whatnot, things would get escalated as well. This is the message that we want to bring to you. These are the war zones that we're living nowadays. These are the conditions that we are facing in terms of how we connect with one another. It is no different in our lives. We may not be in the position of Claudio and Marcia. We may not be wishing that other people would just stop living. We hope not. But we send our darts. We send our negative vibrations to others, right? So it's an alert for all of us that we need to be a good Samaritan for the people outside. We need to be a good Samaritan for individuals that knocks on our door from the outer world. However, our neighbor is right next to us. I never forget that when we were in the first stage of coming together only as a group and then becoming a society in Baltimore, that our friend Awute Sheda reminded us that it's important for us to be charitable where we live, in the area where we work, where we vibrate. If you're in, let's say, Houston, Texas, do goodness in Houston, Texas. If you are in Sacramento, California, do goodness in Sacramento, right there. I can't just worry about what's happening in Beijing, China. I cannot worry what's happening in Madrid. I'm not there. and we can send our good vibrations that the individuals there are doing their part as citizens of that location, and be kind to individuals there. But I have to worry about who is right next to me. In that sense, we also need to do the same thing in our households. We need to look at our wives, our husbands, our daughters, sons, brothers and sisters, and look, here's the situation. I know you're down. You just have been struck by people, somebody on the street, right? Whatever they're going through, I'm going to help you. And it's also important, as we read in the therapeutic parables, that we do not stop our evolutionary path and get connected with their problem, because they have their evolutionary path, we have ours as well. We have to continue. The same way that the man, the Good Samaritan, he's going through that moment, and he takes the individuals to an inn. In the inn, he doesn't get much rest because he's taking care of the man. But then he needs to go on with his life as well and take care of his business. And he was going to come back to that area and pay the man who was actually helping the man that it was left behind. So it's important for us to look at our evolutionary path as well, so that we can all converge to goodness, so we can all grow as well. Because sometimes parents, more often than not, they tend to do this. They tend to stop their lives to say, oh, it's my daughter, it's my son, I have to be right there. No, everyone has all of us, we have our evolutionary path. As hard as this may sound, we also have to think about ourselves, to be able to instruct ourselves to lead others as well. Finally, I would like to share with you this amazing passage from the book Nosso Lar. Towards the end of the book, chapter 48, we will see the connection of Ricardo and Laura. Why do I bring this? They have come to a point of their evolutionary path that they were so connected, not only Ricardo and Laura, but the sons and the son and daughter, as well as the grandkids that are in the spiritual realm. To give you an idea of what was happening, Ricardo was actually reincarnated in very early ages of his infancy on planet Earth. Laura was about to reincarnate on Earth, and their kids and their grandkids, they're also with Laura in the spiritual realm. André Luiz, he is invited to this amazing gathering that they had, this family gathering, and he actually sees a performance of a mediumistic meeting, but coming from Earth to the spiritual realm. What am I trying to say? That their connections are so well elevated, and again, I'm extrapolating now, that it's not just Ricardo and Laura, but the environment, the people who actually in the same frequency, and they're vibrating well, they're doing their best in this legacy of reincarnating on Earth to bring goodness. Ricardo, while he's sleeping, and he's a little child, he is brought to the spirit realm in Nosso Lar to have a conversation, to partake in a gathering that was happening to, we can say this, give farewell to Laura, as she was also reincarnating to Earth. And they find themselves in this amazing moment of connection where he's waiting. He tells that he's waiting for the whole plan to unfold in terms of them reincarnating, getting together, and do the work that they're supposed to do. And he asks that his life does not continue to be a life full of easy things, but to be constructive, that he can work to continue what they planned in Nosso Lar to be done here on planet Earth. And this is what I would like to live with you, because it is also an example that we can aim for. Perhaps we're not going to be Jesus tomorrow. Perhaps we're not going to be, sometimes the high stress that sometimes it's very hard for us. But guess what? We can start this now. We can look at our partners. We can look at the individuals that are next to us and say, there's space and time for all of us here on Earth. And I'll leave you with a thank you. Not only a thank you from me to you, but also inviting you to say thank you for all of those today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Call somebody up and say, thank you for taking me to that inn. Thank you for noticing me when I was stretched out on the street and nobody was helping me. We all have those individuals. We all have those connections where we have that that moment in our lives that we needed somebody who poured wine in our wounds, right? Who gave us the ability to connect with life again. A prayer that we have received, the Spiritist Center, a family member, even if it's someone who has discarnated, send that person good vibrations, because we never know when we're going to need it. Most importantly, take that moment and multiply it. Make sure that you give yourself the ability to multiply this, not only by thinking, but also look at right next to you. Do you see somebody asking for help, begging for help? It may not be that the person is verbalizing it, but it will probably be that the person with their quietness will be looking at you and say, please help. So with no further ado, I would like to thank you for this amazing moment, sharing this with you, this encounter that I have with this book, Sex and Destiny, the encounter that I have with the book Courage, all these mentors that come to us and bring us these teachings, they are also the good Samaritans of our time. There are also the individuals saying, look, it has happened, and you can also do the same. Much more, as Jesus says, that he did. So we thank you again for this amazing opportunity for us to be together on this Saturday, and I'll open up for questions and comments that you may have.
Thank you, Leonardo. Thank you very much. Great lessons there for us to...
I cannot hear it.
Can you hear me? You hear me?
I cannot hear it.
You cannot hear me? Okay, some technical difficulties. Let's see if they resolve while we're here.
I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Good. I was going to start talking, and see how it goes. But so many opportunities, right, Leo, for us to be aware of our surroundings. Like you said, sometimes we get so much into our things and we don't realize the opportunities to be helping others, to look at our neighbors, right? And neighbors starting in our families. It's so easy for us to disconnect and get busy, right? So I think this lesson, especially at this moment, that we are living so closely to our families in this pandemic times, it is the great time for us to understand our role and what we can do to help each other, and also to reach out, right? Because we also, like you said, we need to pay attention ourselves and what we need as well to be strong and to be able to keep moving forward. So those are great lessons. Let's see if we have some questions. Okay, so let's start. You said you do weekly the God at Home. Could you tell us the benefits of doing that with our family or even by ourselves?
I would like to start with struggles. Since we have the discussion on the book, when we decided to study the book, one of the things that we decided was like, okay, if we have to read each chapter together, it will be beneficial, it will be helpful. But I would like to propose that each one of us take the book, reads it, and then we bring our highlights so that we can be more effective and that we can do our own internalization of the thoughts and how we connect with the book. I promoted that idea, and everybody was like, okay, it's the four of us, and we'll make it easier. And one of the struggles that I have is that they read it the day before or during the day when we're about to meet. And I have mentioned to them several times, look, this is serious. This is, we have to connect in a different way with the book. And I learned how to deal with that struggle. Or I should say, I'm learning how to deal with that struggle, because that's the way they're vibrating still. And now, instead of getting upset, I just keep reminding them. So I noticed that is a need that they have to understand that they need to read it way before, since, we do it on Tuesdays, then they need to read it before. And I have told them, look, connect with the message, read it again if you have to, read half of the chapter, and then you can read the other half on the other day. So this is one of the benefits that, to me, is bringing the enlightenment, that they don't learn the same way I learn. They don't see the messages the same way I see it. More importantly, they don't study the way I study. So it's helping me to become more benevolent, more kind. But that doesn't mean I'm going to change the way in terms of saying, let's apply ourselves, because I can be very harsh to myself and most likely to other people as well. But I would say that it's helped me that way. If you are doing this by yourself, if we're I have heard cases that perhaps the wives or husbands or people in the household, they have other individuals living with them, and they don't follow with that individual that is doing the God at home, and we tell them, look, just persist. And the changes that happens in the environment in that person's life can vary. But one thing that I've noticed is that after a while, those individuals, they give in a nice way, because it's invitational. They don't, we tend to tell other people, don't force it. At least ask for quietness. And we see the transformation in terms of people of, okay, let's read together, because I wasn't doing anything on the other room. Let's go ahead and get together. So with the messages, they tend to analyze their feelings, how they're vibrating, how they apply the teachings to their homes. And we would like to remind everyone that it can be any book. It doesn't have to be a chapter, or it can be the Gospel at Home. That's what we would advise you to do. It can be many books, or even the Bible if you want to read a passage of the Bible. But the benefits will vary in many ways. Most importantly, we need to apply it to ourselves. And we live better with who we have at home, since we're talking about our neighbor.
Yeah, let's not use the gospel at home to try to change others, right? This is the moment where you should be doing that. No. It's the time that if we are lucky to get the whole family together, that's wonderful. But even when we have to do ourselves, the ambience, the environment, the connection to the high spirits, it's always wonderful, right, Leo? It's definitely feel our homes to be like points of light in terms of being able to perceive this love and this connection with the high spirit. So it's always great. So let's see if we have one more question. Freddy Ricardo, are spirit allowed to vote, especially in times like this where the country is very divided?
Wow, a political question. Good. Besides being spiritists, besides being, let's say, given the opportunity to live a more spiritual life in terms of paying attention to the spirit aspects of life, we're also reincarnated beings in the planet Earth. Consequently, obviously, in the areas where we vibrate, right? For example, if we're in Germany, if we were in Japan, we're all incarnated in this planet, and we have a saying. We're giving the ability to have a saying. So to answer your question straight, yes, we are allowed to vote. Why not? It's a right that is given by the constitution of that country, that location, that jurisdiction, wherever we live. And we are okay. We should raise our opinion based on our beliefs and based on what we can do for ourselves indirectly or generally to the environment where we live. So yeah, if we have affiliation to this party or to this this individual, let's do so. Let's make sure that we raise our opinion with one thing in mind. And this is what I would like to invite everyone to think about today, since the question was brought up here, with respect. We cannot raise our opinions when we are bringing discord to the table. It's okay for us not to be on the same page or agree on something. It's okay. But as long as we have respect towards one another, that the actions or what I say will bring joy to one another later on. We may not see it right now. That is actually the point that I would like to bring. That what we see nowadays, that since we brought this idea of division, is that we are using this to create more separation. We're using this to make us more divided than ever. And we tend to believe that politicians, the politics is for a few group of people who are in power. But politics should be utilized for us to live a better life. In general, in society, I may have this certain aspects of this party that I like. I may have the other aspect of the party that I like. What really will bring us more benefits than ever, right? And we also have to put another idea in mind, that is the agenda that people have. I may have my affiliations based on my agenda. The same way, these politicians, they are not perfect individuals. And if we think that they're perfect, it's a fallacy. It's just something that I construct in my mind. Just because someone has this or that power or this understanding of life, they're not perfect. If they're reincarnated here on planet Earth, they will make mistakes as well. And we have to be kind to them. They are our neighbor as well. So we have to make sure that we take that in consideration, that not everything is perfect. So we have to really think that, yes, we have to assign and we should vote. We should make our remarks, but very respectfully with one another. And what we do now will have consequences later on as well.
Yeah, well, good answer. We are citizens, right? We definitely live in the material world, and we're represented by the, government. So definitely, and I love your answer about respect. I think that's we see the lack of recently, and we can agree that we disagree. Why not, right?
Yes.
That's okay. Okay, let's see another one. Yasko. Don't you think Claude and Marcia portray the harsh competitors for the same materialistic goals? Does the need to throw down one or the other to win? If the goals, however, were more of transcendental, spiritual nature, they together would work in symbiotic way as nature does. All would gain, and also the offsprings and surroundings.
Yes, I do believe that they are competitors, and it is exactly this competition that brings them together, so that they transform this competitiveness into they take their energy that they apply to this competitive feud and the environment, and they change it into what you just said. So yes, I do agree that it's exactly what they're doing and how they connect. There's no way, because that's exactly what André Luiz says towards the end of the chapter, that they're, again, she's a product of the way he thinks, right? That he created the whole thing, and he cannot complain about it. This is where, this is exactly what he created, and it brings us the importance of responsibility in the environment where we are. Oh, it's easy for us to go and put the responsibility on someone else, but wait a minute, who is there? Right? Who is the individual who's also making decisions along with that group of people? We have different ways to think, yeah, or many ways to take, but at the end of the day, we're there. So we cannot excuse ourselves from the equation since we are part of it. So that is truly the idea. And if they transcend into the idea of competitiveness, they can be even competitive, but to doing good. Right? It's okay for us to construct this idea of being competitive. Who's going to do more without, sacrificing the needs of others? But say, look, let's do even more. If we can be competitive this way, why not take this energy and be competitive in doing good? Right? Being kind to one another, starting with one another. I think that's the point. So thank you for the question.
Yeah. Who can be the nicest one in the family, right? Isn't that a good competition? That's good. Okay. Glaucio Pessoa. why do we always have to deal with the same kind of difficult people throughout our lives?
Wow.
Coming, right?
Yes, I know when it's repetitive, we tend to think, right?
Yeah.
I would like to give a personal example. If and forgive me if some people may not like the personal ideas, right? But here's the thing. Every now and then, I'm going through a transition right now at work, and sometimes I ask myself, why am I here? Because I can't stand this anymore, right? And I say this, I'm being truthful to you, because sometimes it's like we are so powerless in terms of how much we can change, and we know that we have that very strong inside of us, that the ways or the decisions that you would like to make will be beneficial to the greater good, but not necessarily you can do that. So there is the question comes to mind and say, why am I here? Why am I still vibrating in the same environment? This is when we have to go back and say, maybe I'm not acting the way I'm supposed to act. Number one is with resignation, right? To say, if I'm here, there is a purpose for it, for me to learn and for me to really learn. Because one thing is for me to go through the difficulties once, twice, or 3 times. The thing is, when we get to a doctor's degree of that situation, is something completely different, right? So we have to go through the many difficulties that we have to go through to truly allow ourselves to create a foundation to deal with it, not now, but later on. Emmanuel reminds us in a beautiful book, and besides this book that I mentioned as well, Living Spring, that he says, if we want to be the mentors of several individuals, and we cannot be the mentor of a situation or a one person in terms of being more kind, not that we're mentors yet, what are we thinking? It's another fallacy that we want to manage a whole lot, but in your environment is lacking. So to go back to the question, we have to ask ourselves, why am I here? What have I learned? And what have I done to change the environment? Not directly, but indirectly, by being more patient, by being more benevolent, and asking God to help you to change as well, right? It may not come during this time. We have to associate as well, in short words, that our present with our past. Perhaps we are doing the same thing over and over and over and over in the past, and now we have to live the consequences. Not that God is imposing us, making us suffering, but for us to truly open up that and saying, look, I will not do the same thing towards others or towards other situations. So hang in there, because change will come. We just have to be persistent, right? We just have to think that it's not just this lifetime. And sure enough, if it is not just this lifetime, it's not going to be for the rest of my life here or for many, many years to come. Obviously, it depends on how we act and how we react, because we're still reacting a whole lot. So I hope that answers your question.
I guess when that same kind of person, the same difficult, keep repeating, it's because we haven't learned the lesson yet, right? It's not because we like to think other people's problems. They are the bad guys. They are the difficult ones, right? And when it keeps happening. I mean, I'm attracting that kind of person in my life because I have to learn something, like you said, either patience, tolerance, so whatever it is that I need to be learning, they keep coming until the lesson is, then we can achieve a next step, right? That's good. Let's see, we still have more time. Can we find ways to help or listen to our neighbors, even in a virtual way? Right now we're living a virtual way. Are it still possible to be that good Samaritan? I think that is the question, if I can interpret.
It depends, right? Because some people see this virtual world in different ways. We can obviously, don't doubt the power of us calling and FaceTiming someone. Don't doubt the connectivity through a phone, calling someone. I often go through moments where I just pick up I just have the urge, okay, call this person, and I just go and call, and the person say, oh, I was thinking about this, I was going through this. So yes, it can help, and we should use the means that we have. Daniel and I, we were talking about right before the pandemic, or during right at the beginning of the pandemic, where we had to close the Spiritist Center. What would happen, for example, or what was happening to other Spiritist Center in terms of the mediumistic meetings, right? The high spirits, the mentors of that individual, perhaps, or the mentor of an individual who is suffering, they know what we're going through right now, and they know that it is through the means of the virtual world, of the computers of our age now, that we can connect, right? So they will help. They will emphasize the utilization of the virtual world to help one another. Remember, the caring that I have for other people, that we have for other people, doesn't stop if we are connecting over the phone, because it travels. Our energies, it travels just like the cell. Waves will travel through air as well. So the person will feel. Perhaps not in the moment, but later on the person will connect and say, wow, it was really nice that Tanya or whoever called me and and connect with me that way. So yes, let us use it more than ever, because there is no other way.
That's right. Well, we do, like you said, whatever we can, right? I mean, if now this is the way, let's do this way. We can't just stop doing good because of the pandemic or whatever reason, right? We can always send our love and our attention and paying attention. Like you said, if our neighbors are at home, starts from home, that's not even virtually. It is right here, right now. So we can continue. Very good. I think we have time for one more question. And then let's see this one. If one is trying to make amendments and the other party is not, can one evolve despite the other not allowing the forgiveness and love be part of their relationship?
Okay, so let me read this again. If one is trying to make amendments and the other party is not, can one evolve despite the other not allowing the forgiveness and love be part of their relationship? Yes, we can. It would be harsh for us to think that God would stop us from evolving because the other party is not want to evolve or does not want to make amendments with ourselves. We have to take one step back and think that if I have done something wrong, we ought to ask for the possibility to make amends with that individual. If that person doesn't want, God will provide our ways for me or for us to make amendments in other circumstances, not exactly the same way, in the same type of situation, but as Paul has reminded us that our good deeds, our charity, will basically correct all the wrongdoings, the several wrongdoings that we have done in the past. So it's important for us to think that I can be charitable for other individuals. If that individual whom I had a disconnect with did not want to live with me anymore, we have to consequently to accept the choices that other people make in their lives, right? Because we are free to do everything that we can, and we will one day perhaps connect in other ways. And that's why sometimes we have reincarnations where we feel a repulsion, and right after there is a reconciliation. And this happens a lot with our kids, with the people that we meet, that at first when you see that individual, you're like, I don't, but then after that the person can see that you have changed, that you truly have given yourself the ability to become a better individual. But that doesn't mean that we would not be able to evolve. There is a passage from the book Action and Reaction, in which Andrea Luiz mentions or brings to us through the mentor that a mother, along with kids, they ascend, they actually become better individual. However, the husband did not, because he continued in his wrong ways. And Andrea Luiz asks, well, I can see that the wife and the kids are going to a better condition of life, and mentally and spiritually, but the father has not evolved. And I'm using only the father husband so we can see that, bring this to our environment. And Andrea Luiz, and the mentor explains to Andrea Luiz that he will be giving an opportunity with other people to evolve, not necessarily the same situation, but will be a way to construct their life between himself. They're not gonna be together. They're not stuck anymore. And fortunately, the wife with the kids will evolve, but that individual who did not want to ascend will have to trial later on.
Very good. Very good. Well, we are getting to, there's some comments that will be put up there for us. Thanks, Yasko. And we're going towards the end of our time here. But I'd like to ask you, Leo, if you could leave us with some final remarks. And if you accept doing our final prayer for us to end the program.
Thank you so much once more. And yes, I would love to. I would like to ask everyone to really think about this opportunity, and that we had to remind ourselves of who is our neighbor. On that note, I would like to invite everyone to connect with our mentors, the mentors of our home, our Master Jesus and God, and give thanks to this amazing moment that we had to be connected virtually, yet sending our good vibrations, our feelings to everyone. Master Jesus, allow us to partake in more conversations like this, reminding us of what you have brought us, reminding us the way to lead our lives and help others in an invitational way to become better beings. We give thanks for all the good Samaritans that we have had in our lives, for all the struggles that we have seen, and the hands that have been extended to us so we can lift ourselves up, be taken into an inn, thank, and go back into our lives. All the aids, all the helps, even the animals, as is brought into the parable, the other people who are connected, everything that is around us. May we be also good Samaritans, that we can multiply these teachings, allowing others to feel connected with life. In the name of our Master Jesus, I would like to ask that we practice, that we feel the joy of being together, that all the difficulties that we are going through shall pass. Thankful for being here for everyone in the now and in the future. Thank you, Lord, and so be it.
Great reminders that we can take this to our lives and apply, like you said, really remember. And thanks for this great time together, this conversation.
Thank you.
I want to remind everyone that next week we will continue having our series of talks. Next week, September 19th, Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. we will have our guest, Edward Christie from New York, speaking about Lord, Teach Us to Pray. So let's be together again next time. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.